Dodge sat in a cold waiting room that smelled like bleach and cheap coffee. His eyes were dull, tired from endless nights of pain and the crushing weight of medical bills. The receptionist called his name gently, motioning him toward a sleek office with floor-to-ceiling windows. Inside was Miles, a man who looked more like a TV host than a corporate shark. He greeted Dodge with a perfect smile, one that never reached his eyes. He complimented Dodge's name, joked about football teams, and poured him a drink like they were old friends. But the tension between them was thick. Miles had seen Dodge's file. He knew the man in front of him had months, maybe weeks, to live. He wasn't just sick, he was poor, drowning in debt, and about to become a father. Dodge begged for help, not much, just enough to fight for a little more time. But Miles didn't offer pity. He offered a deal, and that deal would change everything. Miles leaned forward and explained that he worked for clients, billionaires, elites, people who paid for things the world would never understand. These people craved power, thrill, control, and what they wanted now was a game. Not just any game, but a hunt. A 24-hour human hunt. Dodge would be the target. If he survived a full day, he'd earn $24.5 million. The catch? No weapons, no help, no leaving Detroit. Each hour he survived would add money to his account. First $50,000, then $100,000, then $200,000, building all the way to $5 million in the final hour. Dodge sat in stunned silence. It sounded insane. It sounded illegal, but when he threatened to call the police, Miles didn't flinch. "Tell them what exactly?" he said coolly. "You agreed to a game. There's no record, no proof. No one will believe you." Dodge stormed out. But even as he walked away, the choice had already been made. But at home, reality closed in. He looked at his pregnant wife asleep on the couch, the baby crib still unassembled, the eviction notice half hidden behind a stack of unpaid bills. His body ached. The headaches were getting worse. His life was slipping away, and he had nothing to leave behind. When he picked up the business card Miles gave him, his hands trembled. With one call, everything would change. He dialed the number. "I'm in," he whispered. Not for glory, not for pride, for his family. Days earlier, he had been pitching his housing project, the Carrington, to potential investors. They all said the same thing: no. He was a dying man trying to sell dreams. He had sold his game-worn football jersey, the last gift from his father, just to afford gas. He didn't tell his wife how bad things were getting. When he found overdue hospital notices stuffed in the back of their kitchen drawer, he confronted her. She cried and said she didn't want to worry him. But Dodge knew it wasn't worry. It was fear. They were out of time. Dreams die when reality hits, but some men refuse to let go. Miles welcomed him again with the same smile, but now there were rules. Once Dodge started the game, there was no backing out. If he left the city, the game would continue until he was dead. If he told anyone, he'd be disqualified. He couldn't carry cash, ID, or get help. Every hour, his phone would ping his location for 15 seconds. After that, he'd go dark again. But his hunters, 5 of them, were already nearby. Miles gave him one last chance to walk away. Dodge refused. "For my son," he said. Sometimes a man fights not for himself, but for the life he's about to leave behind. At 6:46 a.m., the game began. Dodge stepped outside the diner where Miles left him. He looked around. Everyone could be a killer. The man in the coffee shop, the woman with the stroller, a couple arguing on the sidewalk. He started running. The streets were unfamiliar. His phone buzzed. $50,000 deposited. A small chime. A chill crawled up his spine. Somewhere, someone had just learned exactly where he was. And the hunt began. He hopped on a city bus, tried to blend in. When a man in a leather coat sat next to him without saying a word, Dodge's instincts screamed. He pressed the stop button and bolted. The first hour had barely passed. Back at home, his wife checked their account and gasped. $50,000? She tried calling Dodge. No answer. He couldn't answer. He was running for his life. Dodge sprinted through alleyways, ducked into a hotel lobby, and slipped into an elevator with a woman and her baby. But when the doors slid open on the next floor, a man in a crisp blue suit walked in and didn't blink. Dodge stepped off early. The man followed. They moved through empty corridors until Dodge ducked into a restroom. He held his breath. The man kicked open stall doors, slowly, calmly, methodically. Dodge gripped a pen like a weapon. When the door burst open, he stabbed and ran. Blood screaming, but he was alive. The weapon wasn't in his hand. It was in his will to live. The next ping, $100,000. But now the hunters knew he wasn't easy. His wife contacted their friend Luger. Something was wrong. More money came in. She couldn't explain it. Luger promised to help her find Dodge. Meanwhile, Dodge took shelter in a church. A priest listened to his confession. Dodge begged for forgiveness, unsure if he'd live to see another sunrise. But the priest was too calm, too careful. When he reached for something under his robe, Dodge bolted. He turned to see the priest grinning. Another hunter. There was no sanctuary. Not today. Everywhere was danger. On a train platform, a man threw a knife that nearly impaled him. In a shopping mall, a woman offered help only to pull a syringe from her purse. Dodge ran through a football stadium in a stolen jersey, pretending to be part of the crowd. He crawled into a trunk of a stranger's car, only to nearly get arrested when they discovered him. He threatened them, panicked, not knowing who to trust. The rules were simple. Trust no one. Run, survive. At home, his wife discovered the truth. There was no construction deal, no pitch. Dodge had lied. She broke down, scared out of her mind. Then the doorbell rang. A motorbike revved outside. Gunfire erupted. Dodge had returned, but now he was being hunted at his own front door. He ran, leading the killer away. They fought. It was the priest again. Dodge strangled him in self-defense. His hands shook. One less hunter. But the cost was growing. Kill or be killed. And he had no choice left. He boarded a riverboat under a pale gray sky, thinking the open water and crowded decks might buy him a few minutes of peace. For the first time in hours, Dodge let himself breathe. The gentle hum of the engines and soft river breeze almost felt like an escape. He found a quiet corner and leaned on the railing, trying to quiet the chaos in his head. A waitress approached him, friendly, smiling, holding a glass of whiskey. Her voice was sweet, disarming. "On the house," she said. Dodge hesitated, then reached for the glass. But something about her eyes felt wrong, too focused, too calm. As he sipped, she reached under her apron, revealing a syringe laced with a paralytic. Dodge's instincts kicked in. He smashed the glass into her face, tackled her to the floor, and a brutal fight broke out between tables and startled passengers. She pulled a hidden blade from her boot, slicing across Dodge's arm. He headbutted her, knocking her back, then slammed her into the rail and flipped her overboard. The splash was loud. The crowd screamed. Dodge vanished into the chaos before security could respond. Peace is a luxury you earn, not a place you find. Shaking and bleeding, he stumbled into an alley near the pier and pulled out the battered phone Miles had given him. He hit the only number he could call. "Luger, I need help," Dodge said, his voice broken, nearly gone. "They won't stop." Luger arrived within minutes, tires screeching as he pulled up in an old Jeep. Dodge dropped into the passenger seat, eyes wide with disbelief. "You're here," Luger nodded. "I told you, I didn't sell you out." In that moment, Dodge knew he had one final chance to take control. He directed Luger to the one place that still belonged to him, the Carrington, the unfinished building he once dreamed would be his legacy. Now, it would become a war zone. When a man has nothing left, he builds his battlefield out of ruins. They broke inside through a boarded side door, using bolt cutters to slip past the chain. Inside, shadows stretched across concrete hallways and rusted scaffolding. Dodge began setting traps with the precision of a man who had nothing left to lose. He used old nails, broken glass, coiled wires, and a gas line he remembered from the blueprints. Luger covered the exits. They worked silently, methodically. Dodge's hands bled from wrapping wires. His mind flashed with memories of his father teaching him how to build. "Measure twice, cut once," his dad used to say. Now those lessons were saving his life. Sometimes the only way out is to make them come in. The first hunter entered, thinking Dodge was just another desperate man. He didn't make it 5 steps before being yanked into the air by a hidden wire trap. His neck snapped on impact. The second came in through the rooftop and triggered a nail bomb rigged to a motion sensor. He was dead before he hit the floor. One by one, they came, and one by one, Dodge dropped them. The building shook as the fire spread. Orange flames licked the walls. Smoke poured into the sky. Dodge crawled through vents and ducked into crawl spaces like a wounded animal, relentless. clever, and driven by something stronger than fear, love. They came to hunt a victim, but found a warrior instead. Just when he thought it was over, a burner phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a final message from an unknown number. "She's here, the Carrington." His heart stopped. His wife. They had her. Dodge sprinted through the smoke-filled corridors toward the old storage wing. He burst in, lungs burning, eyes wild, and there stood the final hunter, taller than the rest, dressed in sleek black, blood dripping from a small cut on his cheek. He had been waiting. This wasn't just a hunt anymore. This was personal.